I'm just going to go out on a limb and ask if sexual harassment's ever happened to you.
It has, and it's something that I think has happened to so many women, and most of us say nothing.
Because look at how we react to women when they finally do come forward. They're accused of making it up.
Do you remember the moment when you said to yourself, I'm ready and I'm prepared to take on the most powerful man in television?
I wish I could answer that, but I can't.
In the fast-paced world of television news, where trust and credibility are paramount, news anchors often find themselves under intense scrutiny. While many journalists maintain the highest standards of professionalism, others have seen their careers crumble due to scandals, controversies, or lapses in judgment. From sexual misconduct allegations to inflammatory comments and breaches of journalistic integrity, the reasons behind the downfall of these once respected figures are as varied as they are shocking. Join us as we delve into the stories of prominent news anchors whose actions led to their unceremonious dismissals.
Is more in touch with the American people. When I traveled around the country, I've probably worked in 35 different states. I've been in television stations in states. I produced the Mike Douglas show back in the 60s, so I had a sense of audience. And in fact, we began in that show to use politicians' wives. We filmed in Hubert Humphrey's home. We had his wife Muriel on as a co-host. So I had a sense of what was going to happen in television, that there would be a mixture of entertainment, information, politics. It's all one now. And if they looked at Jack Paar, they wanted their politicians to be as comfortable as he was telling a story. And Jack Kennedy, of course, changed everything because he was so handsome. And
Roger Ailes, the mastermind behind the rise of Fox News, found himself at the center of a scandal that ultimately led to his downfall. As the CEO and chairman of the network, Ailes had built a media empire that had reshaped the landscape of cable news. But beneath the surface, a dark secret had been lurking. In July 2016, former Fox News anchor Gretchen Carlson filed a lawsuit against Ailes, alleging she had been sexually harassed by him during her time at the network. Carlson claimed that Ailes had made numerous inappropriate comments and advances towards her, and that when she refused his advances, she was fired from her position. The news of Carlson's lawsuit sent shockwaves through the media industry, and soon other women began to come forward with their own stories of harassment and misconduct at the hands of Ailes. Among them was Megyn Kelly, one of Fox News' biggest stars, who revealed that Ailes had made unwanted sexual advances towards her early in her career. As the allegations against Ailes mounted, the pressure on him and the network began to grow. Advertisers began to pull support, and there were calls for Ailes to step down from his position. He eventually resigned from his role as CEO and chairman of Fox News on July 21st, 2016.
The end game is let's link O'Reilly with Harvey Weinstein. Let's make him that. So we take him out of the marketplace forever.
Bill O'Reilly, the former host of the highly popular show The O'Reilly Factor on Fox News, was once considered one of the most powerful and influential figures in the world of cable news. But in April 2017, a string of accusations of sexual harassment against him surfaced, and his reputation and career collapsed. The New York Times published an expose revealing that O'Reilly and Fox News had paid out millions of dollars to settle multiple sexual harassment claims against him over the years. The report detailed a pattern of behavior in which O'Reilly had allegedly harassed and verbally abused several female colleagues, using his position of power to intimidate and silence them. As the news of the allegations spread, advertisers began to flee the O'Reilly factor in droves, putting pressure on Fox News to take action. O'Reilly, who had been with the network for more than 2 decades and had built a loyal following among conservative viewers, initially dismissed the allegations as baseless and politically motivated. However, as more women came forward with their own stories of harassment and abuse at the hands of O'Reilly, the tide began to turn against him. Fox News, facing mounting public pressure and a growing advertiser boycott, eventually decided to part ways with its biggest star. On April 19, 2017, Fox News announced that O'Reilly would not be returning to the network. Matt Lauer, the once beloved host of NBC's Today Show, found himself at the center of a shocking scandal that ultimately led to his downfall. For over 2 decades, Lauer had been a fixture on morning television, known for his charming personality and easy rapport with his co-hosts and guests. But in November 2017, NBC announced that Lauer had been fired from the network due to allegations of inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace. The news came as a surprise to many, as Lauer had been a trusted and respected figure in the world of television journalism for so long. As details of the allegations began to emerge, it became clear that Lauer's behavior had been a problem for years. Multiple women came forward with stories of harassment and abuse at the hands of Lauer, painting a picture of a man who had used his position of power to take advantage of his female colleagues. One of the most disturbing allegations came from a former NBC employee who claimed that Lauer had sexually assaulted her in his office in 2001. The woman, who had been working as a production assistant at the time, said Lauer had summoned her to his office and then proceeded to sexually assault her. The fallout from the scandal was swift and severe. NBC quickly launched an internal investigation into the allegations and vowed to take steps to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. Lauer, meanwhile, released a statement apologizing for his behavior and expressing remorse for the pain he'd caused.
As I am writing this, I realize the depth of the damage and disappointment I have left behind at home and at NBC. Some of what is being said about me is untrue or mischaracterized, but there is enough truth in these stories to make me feel embarrassed and ashamed. Repairing the damage will take a lot of time and soul searching, and I'm committed to beginning that effort.
He was fired from his position at NBC and became a pariah in the media industry. The Today Show, which had long been a ratings juggernaut, saw its viewership decline in the wake of the scandal.
On this broadcast last week, in an effort to honor and thank a veteran who protected me and so many others after a ground fire incident in the desert during the Iraq War invasion, I made a mistake in recalling the events of 12 years ago. It did not take long to hear from some brave men and women in the air crews who were also in that desert. I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft. We all landed after the ground fire incident and spent 2 harrowing nights in a sandstorm in the Iraq desert. This was a bungled attempt by me to thank one special veteran and, by extension, our brave military men and women, veterans everywhere, those who have served while I did not. I hope they know they have my greatest respect and also now my apology.
Brian Williams, the former anchor and managing editor of NBC Nightly News, was once considered one of the most trusted and respected figures in television journalism. With his smooth delivery, authoritative tone, and decades of experience covering major news events, he had earned the trust and admiration of millions. But in February 2015, he found himself at the center of a scandal that would ultimately tarnish his reputation and lead to a downfall. It began when Williams was caught exaggerating a story about his experiences covering the Iraq War in 2003. During a broadcast of NBC Nightly News, Williams claimed he'd been in a helicopter that was hit by an RPG and forced to land. It was later revealed that Williams had not been in the helicopter that was hit, but rather in a different helicopter that arrived on the scene later. As the story began to unravel, other instances of Williams exaggerating or embellishing his experiences came to light. He had claimed to have seen a body floating in the French Quarter of New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, but it was later revealed he had not actually witnessed this firsthand. The scandal quickly spiraled out of control, with many questioning his credibility and integrity as a journalist. NBC launched an internal investigation, and in June 2015, they announced Williams would be suspended without pay for 6 months. The repercussions of the controversy had a major impact on both Williams and NBC. Their flagship news program, NBC Nightly News, saw its ratings decline in the wake of the controversy, and many viewers expressed disappointment and frustration with Williams' actions. In the end, he was demoted from his position as anchor and managing editor and was given a new role as host of MSNBC's nightly news program, The 11th Hour with Brian Williams.
I deeply apologize for my inappropriate behavior. I am greatly embarrassed. I have behaved insensitively at times, and I accept responsibility for that, though I do not believe that all of the allegations are accurate.
Charlie Rose, the renowned journalist and host of his eponymous talk show on PBS and CBS, had built a reputation as one of the most respected and influential figures in the world of television journalism. With his signature round oak table and intimate interview style, Rose had become a staple of late-night television, known for his in-depth conversations with politicians, celebrities, and thought leaders. Rose's career, however, came to an end in November 2017 as a result of sexual harassment and misconduct charges. The Washington Post published a bombshell report in which 8 women accused Rose of making unwanted sexual advances, including groping, lewd phone calls, and walking around naked in their presence. The allegations against Rose spanned several decades and painted a picture of a man who had used his position of power and influence to harass and intimidate women who worked for him or aspired to work in the media industry. Many of the women who came forward said they had been afraid to speak out against Rose for fear of retribution or damage to their careers. As the scandal unfolded, more women came forward with their own stories of harassment and abuse at the hands of Rose. CBS and PBS, which had distributed Rose's talk show, quickly moved to sever ties with the disgraced journalist, canceling his show and firing him from his positions at both networks. He was forced to step down from his various media roles and saw his reputation as a respected journalist and interviewer thoroughly tarnished.
We reported a true story. There are many questions about George Bush. Was he AWOL, absent without leave? Did he desert? Because he disappeared for a year. If you're an American soldier or airman in Afghanistan today and you walk off the base for even a couple of days, you have to be accountable and you have to pay consequences. George was tempered. We reported a true story, and that's the reason I'm no longer at CBS News.
Dan Rather, the legendary journalist who had anchored the CBS Evening News for over 2 decades, found himself at the center of a controversy that would ultimately end his storied career at the network. In September 2004, just months before the presidential election, Rather and his team at CBS aired a report that questioned President George W. Bush's service in the Texas Air National Guard during the Vietnam War. The report, which relied on documents allegedly written by Bush's former commanding officer, suggested that Bush had received preferential treatment and had failed to fulfill his military obligations. The story quickly became a political firestorm, with conservatives accusing Rather and CBS of bias and of trying to influence the election. As the controversy grew, questions began to emerge about the authenticity of the documents used in the report. Experts in typography and document analysis raised doubts about whether the memo could have been created on the typewriters that were in use at the time they were allegedly written. Rather and CBS initially stood by the story, but as the evidence mounted, they were forced to acknowledge they couldn't verify the authenticity of the documents. In a stunning reversal, the network issued an apology and retracted the story, saying it had been misled by its sources. In the wake of the controversy, Rather announced he would step down as anchor of the CBS Evening News. He continued to work for the network as a correspondent, but his role was diminished, and he eventually left CBS altogether in 2006.
So, Don, you say for those concerned about your departure from CNN, it fundamentally came down to truth and responsibility?
I have a responsibility not only as a journalist, but as an American, to tell the truth and to abide by the promises of the Constitution. Because the Constitution says a more perfect union, not a perfect union. I'm not a perfect person, no one is. But I think the Constitution deserves us in order to fulfill the promise of the Constitution, we have to stand up for what is right.
Don Lemon, the longtime CNN anchor, known for his outspoken and sometimes controversial style, found himself at the center of a media firestorm in February 2023. The incident that sparked the controversy occurred during a segment on his morning show, CNN This Morning, in which Lemon and his co-hosts were discussing the potential presidential candidacy of Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. During the discussion, Lemon made a comment about Haley's age, suggesting she was past her prime and that women were only in their prime during their 20s, 30s, and maybe their 40s. The comment was met with immediate backlash, with many viewers and commentators accusing Lemon of sexism and ageism. As the controversy grew, he attempted to clarify his remarks, saying he was not referring to Haley specifically, but rather to the idea that people in their 20s and 30s are in their prime. But the damage had been done. His abrupt termination from CNN sent shockwaves through the media landscape in April 2023. The longtime anchor took to Twitter to express his bewilderment, claiming he was blindsided by the network's decision and had no prior indication his job was in jeopardy. Lemon asserted he was informed of his firing by his agent that very morning, leaving him stunned and grappling with the stunning turn of events. However, CNN swiftly countered his narrative, accusing the veteran journalist of misrepresenting the situation. The network maintained they had offered Lemon an opportunity to engage in a dialogue with management, but instead of accepting the invitation, he chose to release a public statement on social media. Chris Cuomo.
But specifically to your question, I love my brother. The rule in my family is very simple. Family, trouble, go. Other people have the luxury of judging allegations and situations. For me, it was about helping my brother in a hard way and doing it in a way that I didn't think compromised what matters. And that's what guided me.
In November 2021, the news anchor found himself embroiled in a scandal that ultimately led to his downfall at CNN. The longtime host's troubles began when documents released by the New York Attorney General's office revealed he'd used his media connections to assist his brother, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, in navigating a sexual harassment scandal. This revelation raised serious questions about his journalistic integrity and his apparent violation of CNN's code of conduct. As the controversy unfolded, CNN took swift action, pending an internal investigation. The host acknowledged the gravity of his actions and expressed understanding of the network's decision. He admitted his involvement in his brother's scandal was never his intention and that he deeply regretted any compromise to his colleagues or the network. However, the suspension was only the beginning of Cuomo's troubles. Following the completion of CNN's internal investigation, the network announced they had severed ties with the host, effective immediately. CNN stood firm, citing the discovery of new information during their review of the situation. Chris Cuomo expressed disappointment, but remained steadfast in his belief that he had acted out of loyalty to his family. He defended his actions, emphasizing that he'd always been transparent about his motivations and his desire to support his brother during a difficult time. Despite the personal and professional consequences, Chris seemed to have no regrets about his decision to prioritize family over career. Mark Halperin.
There's some troubling things in the piece, but there's nothing illegal. There's nothing even kind of like beyond boorish or politically incorrect.
In October 2017, the media world was rocked by a scandal involving ABC News host Mark Halperin. Multiple women who had previously worked with Halperin came forward with allegations of sexual harassment, painting a disturbing picture of inappropriate behavior and non-consensual physical contact. The accusers, 5 in total, recounted incidents that had left them feeling violated and powerless in the face of Halperin's advances. One former ABC employee shared a particularly harrowing experience, describing how Halperin had cornered her during a seemingly innocent encounter. Without warning, he allegedly kissed her and groped her breasts, leaving her frozen in shock and unsure of how to respond. The accusations against Halperin ranged from unwanted sexual advances to inappropriate touching, all of which created a hostile and uncomfortable work environment for the women involved. As the allegations came to light, Halperin issued a statement acknowledging his past behavior and expressing remorse for the pain he had caused. He admitted to pursuing relationships with women he worked with, including some who were his subordinates, and recognized that his actions were inappropriate and hurtful. His apology did little to quell the outrage and disappointment that followed. The fallout was swift and severe. MSNBC and NBC News, with whom Halperin held contracts at the time, wasted no time in cutting ties with the disgraced journalist. The networks made it clear such behavior would not be tolerated, and they promptly severed their relationships with Halperin. In the wake of the dismissal, he took to Twitter to issue a more extensive apology. He acknowledged he'd been part of the problem at ABC News for a long time and deeply regretted his actions. He recognized his behavior had caused fear and anxiety among women who were simply trying to do their jobs, and he expressed his sincere remorse for the harm he had inflicted. Ed Henry. Ed Henry, a veteran journalist, found himself entangled in a web of scandal that ultimately led to his downfall at Fox News. The first sign of trouble emerged in 2016 when his months-long affair with hostess Natalia Lima became public knowledge. Henry, who had been married since 2010, reportedly met Lima in 2011, but the relationship did not turn intimate until 4 years later. As the details emerged, Fox News took swift action, suspending Henry from his hosting duties. The network issued a statement acknowledging they had recently become aware of Henry's personal issues and that he would be taking some time off to work things out. The scandal cast a shadow over Henry's reputation, raising questions about his judgment and professionalism. Despite the setback, Henry managed to return to the air just over 4 months later, having seemingly weathered the storm. But his second chance was short-lived, as an even bigger scandal loomed. In June 2020, Fox News received a complaint from a former employee's attorney alleging that Henry had engaged in willful sexual misconduct in the workplace years earlier. The network promptly launched an investigation, and within a few days, Henry was officially terminated from his position.
This is in addition to the previous work of In Touch magazine, which was one of the original sources. They disclosed that Henry had carried on an alleged 10-month affair with a Las Vegas hostess. In this source, called a hostess. I've heard other professions. The 44-year-old Henry has been married to NPR deputy Washington editor Shirley Hung since 2010. The indiscretions are both sexual and professional, as the hostess alleged that Henry had offered her a trip to a Trump resort, though he never came through on the offer. Did it have to be a Trump resort?
The abrupt firing sent shockwaves through the media industry, as he'd been a prominent figure at Fox News for many years. As the dust settled, questions lingered about the culture within Fox News and the media industry as a whole.
Well, I practiced law for 9.5 years and decided that stunk, and then got into journalism because I wanted to report the news. And I did that for many years at Fox. I covered the Supreme Court for them, and I did legal commentary. And honestly, it wasn't until I got my job in primetime that the coverage became all political. And I was never a political person. I wasn't raised in a political household, and it was just, it became clear to me that it wasn't what I wanted to do. That's not who I am. And then Donald Trump has a way of clarifying one's life choices. And that was true in my case too. And really, just as I was sort of wondering whether this was where I wanted to be and how I wanted to live, you know, the universe came and sort of shone a light, and it was clear to me what I wanted to do.
Megyn Kelly, a prominent figure in television journalism, made a name for herself during her 13-year tenure at Fox News. She contributed to numerous segments and eventually landed her own show, quickly becoming one of the network's most recognizable faces. Kelly's sharp wit and incisive questioning earned her national attention, particularly during the 2015 GOP presidential debate, when she fearlessly confronted then-candidate Donald Trump. Trump, known for his brash and often controversial statements, did not take kindly to Kelly's line of questioning. In the aftermath of the debate, he launched a series of personal attacks against the anchor, infamously remarking there was blood coming out of her eyes and wherever. The feud between Kelly and Trump captivated the nation, with many praising Kelly for her unwavering professionalism in the face of such hostility. Despite the tension, Fox News attempted to broker a truce between the two parties by arranging a one-on-one interview with Trump, which aired in May 2016. The highly anticipated sit-down was seen as a pivotal moment in Kelly's career, showcasing her ability to navigate even the most contentious of relationships. However, Kelly's time at Fox News was not without its own controversies. In January 2017, she made the surprising decision to leave the network and join NBC News, where she was given the opportunity to host her own daytime program, Megyn Kelly Today. It was seen as a major coup for NBC, as they had successfully lured one of Fox News' biggest stars. Unfortunately, her tenure there was short-lived. In October 2018, during an episode of her show, she made comments about blackface that were widely criticized as insensitive and racist. The backlash was swift and severe, with many calling for her immediate termination. Just days later, NBC announced that they had canceled Megyn Kelly Today, bringing an abrupt end to her time at the network. Despite the controversy surrounding her departure, Kelly managed to secure a substantial payout of $69 million. She has since gone on to host her own daily talk show and podcast on SiriusXM, aptly titled The Megyn Kelly Show. While her career has been marked by both triumphs and tribulations, she remains a force to be reckoned with in media.
Oh, I know, I don't like that title. Listen, I have been fighting for women my entire life. People who've known me all along know that about me.
Gretchen Carlson, a prominent journalist and former Miss America, joined Fox News in 2005 as a co-host for the network's popular morning show Fox and Friends. After several successful years on the program, she made the move to host her own show, The Real Story with Gretchen Carlson, in 2013. But her tenure at Fox News came to an abrupt and controversial end just 3 years later. On June 23, 2016, her contract with the network expired, and she was unceremoniously fired from her position. The circumstances surrounding the termination became the subject of intense media scrutiny and speculation. It wasn't until nearly 2 weeks later that the true nature of her departure came to light, when she filed a bombshell lawsuit against Roger Ailes. In the lawsuit, Carlson alleged she had been subjected to persistent sexual harassment at the hands of Ailes throughout her time at the network. She claimed her refusal to engage in a sexual relationship with Ailes had ultimately led to her firing, painting a disturbing picture of a toxic work environment where women were routinely objectified and mistreated. Rick Sanchez.
How is he a minority? Yeah, Rick, very powerless people.
Whoa, but
you're such a minority. I mean, please. What are you kidding?
You're telling me that
I'm telling you that everybody who runs CNN is a lot like Stewart, and a lot of people who run all the other networks are a lot like Stewart. And to imply that somehow the people in this country who are Jewish, are an oppressed minority.
Rick Sanchez, a seasoned journalist with a career spanning several decades, found himself at the center of a controversy that ultimately cost him his job at CNN. The incident that led to his downfall happened during a fateful interview on the SiriusXM radio show Stand Up with Pete Dominick in October 2010. During the course of the conversation, Sanchez made a series of inflammatory remarks that quickly ignited a media firestorm. The most damaging of Sanchez's comments were directed at Jon Stewart, the popular host of Comedy Central's The Daily Show. Sanchez, who had been a frequent target of Stewart's satirical barbs, accused the comedian of being a bigot, suggesting his humor was rooted in a deep-seated prejudice against minorities. He went to imply that Stewart, and by extension the majority of those who run the media networks, were Jewish and therefore could not be considered an oppressed minority. Sanchez's remarks, which were anti-Semitic, sent shockwaves through the media industry. CNN, known for its commitment to impartiality and journalistic integrity, wasted no time in responding. The very day after the interview aired, the network announced that Sanchez had been fired. In the wake of the termination, he issued a public apology, expressing regret for his words and acknowledging he'd spoken inaccurately and inappropriately. Interestingly, Jon Stewart later expressed his belief that the journalist should not have been fired for his comments. During an episode of Larry King Live, Stewart suggested that while Sanchez's remarks were misguided and offensive, terminating his employment may have been an overreaction on the part of CNN. Tucker Carlson.
But I do feel sorry for her in that way. I feel sorry for unattractive women.
Yeah, well, she could certainly, shape it up a little bit. Lose 10 or 15 pounds, get a tan, fix those teeth.
It's just absolutely fundamental. Physically, the problems are
this woman,
fundamental. She's never going to be an attractive.
Let's talk.
Tucker Carlson, a high-profile and controversial figure in journalism, has built a reputation as a provocateur, often stirring up scandals with inflammatory rhetoric and polarizing opinions. In April 2023, the media landscape was rocked by the news of his abrupt dismissal from Fox News, where he had served as a host for over a decade. The announcement came as a surprise to many, as Carlson had become one of the network's most recognizable and influential personalities, known for his fiery monologues and confrontational interview style. The circumstances were shrouded in mystery initially, with Fox News providing little insight into the reasons behind the decision. They simply thanked him for his service and wished him well. As the details began to emerge, it was apparent Carlson's termination was not entirely unexpected. In the months leading up to his dismissal, the network had faced intense scrutiny over its coverage of the 2020 presidential election and its alleged role in perpetuating baseless claims of voter fraud. Carlson himself had been at the center of many of those controversies, using his platform to promote conspiracy theories and to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the election results. His inflammatory rhetoric and willingness to push the boundaries of acceptable discourse had long been a source of concern for critics who accused him of contributing to the spread of misinformation and the erosion of public trust in the media. The final straw may have been the revelation of his private text messages, which came to light during the legal battle between Fox News and Dominion Voting Systems. The messages painted a damning picture of his behind-the-scenes behavior and raised questions about his journalistic integrity. Now it's time to hear from you. Which news anchor's story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments section below.